Every interstellar civilization in recorded galactic history has collapsed for one of three reasons: resource depletion, internal warfare, or catastrophic leadership. Every single one. The Nine Realms, the Kree Empire, the Sovereign Genome Project, all of them compromised from within. So when someone asks, where in the MCU would you actually want to live? They're really asking a far more dangerous question. They're asking which worlds managed to beat the odds, which civilizations cracked the code of sustainable dominance long enough that an ordinary civilian could walk outside, breathe clean air, and not worry about orbital bombardment before breakfast. Today we're declassifying the 10 MCU planets where life isn't just survivable, it's enviable. But here's the promise. By the end of this breakdown, you'll understand that one of these paradises was always destined to kill everyone on it, and the residents never saw it coming. 1. Asgard's Golden Dominion. Forget everything you think you know about heaven. Asgard wasn't a metaphor. It was an engineering masterpiece suspended in a dimensional pocket of space, tethered to the branches of Yggdrasil, and governed by a monarchy with a military apparatus that conquered 9 realms before most Earth civilizations had discovered bronze. Now picture your daily life there. You wake up in a city that gleams like hammered gold under a sky that never fully darkens. The Bifrost Bridge stretches across an infinite ocean of cosmic mist, refracting light into permanent prismatic halos across the horizon. The architecture alone would break an Earth-based structural engineer's mind. Soaring towers with no visible load-bearing supports, held aloft by a combination of Asgardian metallurgy and passive enchantment fields that have been stable for millennia. The average Asgardian lifespan sits around 5,000 years. Disease is virtually non-existent. The food supply, sustained through inter-realm trade routes Odin established during his conquest era, is abundant and varied. Civilian access to martial training means personal security is practically a cultural birthright. You're not just living in a beautiful city. You're living in a fortress state where the weakest citizen could bench press a car. The real appeal, though, is the stability. For thousands of years, the Asgardian governance model held. One throne, one all-father, one standing army powerful enough to enforce peace across dimensions. For a civilian, that translates to something priceless: predictability. You could plan a life there, raise a family, grow old, very, very old, without ever questioning whether the lights would stay on. Of course, that predictability had a price. Hela's return proved the entire Golden Age was built on buried war crimes. But we'll get to the cracks in paradise later. But what if a world didn't need a king to keep the peace? Our next planet chose democracy over dynasty, and it actually worked. 2. Xandar's Cosmopolitan Shield. If Asgard is old money, Xandar is the thriving democratic republic that actually works. Capital of the Nova Empire and headquarters of the Nova Corps, Xandar represents something exceptionally rare in the MCU. A multi-species civilization that chose diplomacy over domination and somehow survived long enough to prove it wasn't a flawed strategy. Imagine stepping off a transport ship into a city where the skyline is a seamless blend of crystalline towers and organic architecture. Every surface catching the light of a temperate sun that warms but never scorches. The streets are clean. The air is regulated. Species from dozens of star systems walk side by side, trading, arguing, laughing, and none of them are reaching for weapons. The Nova Corps functions as both military and law enforcement, and their operational efficiency is staggering. Threat detection, rapid response, planetary shield deployment. Xandar doesn't just protect its citizens. It wraps them in layered defensive infrastructure that would make S.H.I.E.L.D. weep with envy. When Ronan the Accuser brought a Dark Aster warship into orbit, the Nova Corps formed a physical blockade with their own star blasters. That's not just bravery. That's institutional commitment to civilian protection, at a scale Earth has never achieved. Daily life on Xandar offers something Earth can barely imagine: genuine multicultural integration without systemic collapse. The economy is stable. The justice system, while imperfect, operates on codified law rather than monarchical decree. You could open a business, access healthcare, and walk through a park where the trees were genetically cultivated to bloom in rotating seasonal colors all year round. For anyone tired of Earth's geopolitical chaos, Xandar is the answer you didn't know you were looking for. Xandar opened its doors to the galaxy, but our next world did the opposite. It hid so well that finding it might be the hardest thing you ever do. 3. Talo's Hidden Sanctuary. Some worlds don't want to be found. Talo is one of them, and that's precisely what makes it so valuable. Tucked behind a dimensional gateway concealed within a moving bamboo forest maze, Talo exists in a pocket realm that operates on entirely different physical principles to the rest of the observable universe. The gateway itself only opens at specific intervals, which means the world beyond it has evolved in near total isolation for centuries. Now close your eyes and picture this. You step through the threshold, and the air changes immediately. Thinner, sweeter, carrying the scent of flowers that don't exist in any Earth-based botanical index. The landscape opens into rolling valleys of emerald and violet, where bioluminescent flora pulses gently in rhythm with what the locals describe as the breath of the realm itself. Rivers of crystalline water wind through ancient forests where the trees are so old, their root systems have formed natural bridges between hillsides. The fauna is where Talo gets truly extraordinary. This is a world where mythical creatures from Chinese folklore aren't myths at all. The Great Protector, a dragon of enormous scale and intelligence, patrols the skies, while smaller creatures coexist with the human inhabitants in a symbiotic balance that Earth's ecosystems lost millennia ago. The civilization here is small, deliberate, and deeply rooted in martial discipline and spiritual practice. There's no industrial complex, no pollution, no arms race. The inhabitants of Talo train their bodies and minds to channel dimensional energy, making them formidable defenders despite their modest population. The trade-off is isolation. You're cut off from the broader universe entirely. But for anyone who's ever fantasized about disappearing into a world where nature still has the upper hand and the sky turns colors that haven't been named yet, Talo is the classified paradise file you were never supposed to access. Talo let nature lead. But what happens when a civilization decides nature isn't good enough and engineers perfection into every single citizen? 4. Sovereigns gilded perfection. The sovereign don't do imperfection. It's not a cultural preference, it's a genetic mandate. Every citizen of the sovereign homeworld is engineered from birth, or more accurately, from pod. Their entire population is produced through advanced genetic fabrication, each individual designed to be physically flawless, intellectually optimized, and aesthetically uniform. The result is a civilization that has eliminated disease, disability, and deviation in a single generation cycle. Walk through a sovereign city, and the first thing that hits you is the color. Everything is gold, not painted gold, not gold-plated, structurally golden, as though the entire civilization decided millennia ago that one color represented absolute supremacy and committed to it at a molecular level. The buildings, the ships, the clothing, even the skin of the citizens themselves carries a warm, metallic sheen that catches light like polished armor. The infrastructure is immaculate. Sovereign cities are designed with geometric precision, every line intentional, every angle calculated. There's no urban decay, no graffiti, no disorder. Public spaces are maintained to a standard that would make the most obsessive Earth-based city planner cry tears of inadequacy. Now here's what makes the Sovereign genuinely appealing as a residential prospect. Their military operates entirely through remote-piloted drone fleets. Citizens wage war from command pods, never risking physical harm. The strategic implication is enormous. The Sovereign have functionally eliminated combat casualties for their own population while maintaining aggressive territorial defense. The downside? The Sovereign are staggeringly arrogant, culturally rigid, and they will execute you for a perceived insult. So, mind your manners. The Sovereign built perfection from scratch, but our next world had perfection handed to it on a plate and still managed to destroy itself completely. 5. Titan's lost utopia. Before Thanos became the most feared warlord in galactic history, He was just a kid growing up on a world that had everything. Titan, the original Titan, not the Saturnian moon, was once classified as a paradise-class world. Thanos himself described it with a reverence he reserved for nothing else: a planet of stunning natural beauty, advanced technology, and a thriving population that had achieved something close to post-scarcity civilization. Imagine a world where the horizon is painted in gradients of amber and rose, where the atmosphere filters sunlight into perpetual golden hour. The architecture was a blend of organic curves and crystalline geometry. Cities that looked grown rather than built, nestled into landscapes of rolling highlands and vast, calm oceans. The Titan civilization had cracked sustainable energy, interstellar travel. If Thanos' account is to be believed, a quality of life that most species spend their entire evolutionary history chasing. Citizens lived long, productive lives. Resources were managed through advanced allocation systems. The arts flourished. Science advanced. For a brief window in cosmic history, Titan was proof that intelligent life could build something worth preserving. Then the population outstripped the resource base, and nobody listened to the one person proposing a solution. The collapse was total. The world you see in Infinity War, a shattered ruin of broken geometry and toxic atmosphere, is the corpse of what might have been the greatest civilization the MCU ever produced. The tactical lesson is brutal. Titan didn't fall because of invasion or war. It fell because abundance made its leaders complacent, and complacency is the quietest form of extinction. Titan died from the inside. But what if a civilization built its entire world inside something that was already dead? The skull of an ancient god. 6. Nowhere's celestial refuge. Most civilizations build their cities on solid ground. The inhabitants of Nowhere built theirs inside a severed god's skull. Nowhere is the decapitated head of an ancient celestial, one of the primordial cosmic entities that seeded life across the universe. Now repurposed as a mining colony, trading hub, and off-the-grid sanctuary for anyone who doesn't want to be found. And that, paradoxically, is what makes it one of the most livable locations in the MCU. Step inside and the scale is immediately disorienting. The interior of the Celestial Skull has been hollowed out and converted into a sprawling multi-level metropolis. Neon light spills from market stalls and cantinas stacked on top of each other in chaotic vertical layers. The air smells like engine coolant and alien street food. It's loud, crowded, and completely unregulated, which means no customs, no surveillance, and no government telling you what you can or can't trade. The economy runs on celestial spinal fluid mining, which sounds grim until you realize it's one of the most valuable raw materials in the galaxy. That means money flows freely through Nowhere, supporting a thriving black market, entertainment district, and surprisingly robust service economy. For a civilian, the appeal is freedom. Nowhere has no standing military, no immigration restrictions, and no dominant species calling the shots. It's the MCU's closest equivalent to an interstellar free port. You want to open a bar? Do it. You want to disappear and reinvent yourself? Nobody's asking questions. The risk is obvious. No formal law enforcement means disputes are settled privately, and the Collector's presence in the area introduced a layer of unpredictability that culminated in a minor detonation incident involving an Infinity Stone. But if you've got street smarts and a tolerance for organized chaos, Nowhere offers a life that no regulated empire can match. Nowhere gave you freedom with no guarantees, but our next world offered absolute perfection with zero effort, and that should have been the first warning sign. 7. Ego's seductive surface. Here's where the briefing takes a classified turn, because Ego's planet is, on the surface, literally the most beautiful world in the MCU, and it was designed to be. But the official records are a lie. Beneath the surface, the real agenda was much darker. Ego the Living Celestial didn't just inhabit a planet, he was the planet. Every mountain, every ocean, every blade of grass was an extension of his consciousness, sculpted and maintained with the deliberate precision of an artist who had millions of years to perfect his canvas. And what a canvas it was! Imagine arriving on a world where the landscapes shift to accommodate your deepest aesthetic preferences. Rolling fields of iridescent wildflowers that stretch to horizons you can't quite reach. Waterfalls that cascade from floating rock formations into pools of water so clear you can see geological strata 20 meters below the surface. The sky cycles through colors that don't have names in any Earth-based language. Deep violets bleeding into electric turquoise, backlit by 3 distant suns. The temperature is always perfect. The air is always clean. The food, if you can call the generated organic matter food, is always available. Ego's Planet is the ultimate all-inclusive resort, curated by a being with godlike power and an obsessive need to impress. Here's the classified reality. Every molecule of that paradise was a lure. Ego constructed the surface beauty specifically to attract visitors, breed with compatible species, and expand his consciousness across the galaxy through his expansion protocol. The planet wasn't a home. It was a trap dressed in the most beautiful wrapping paper the universe has ever seen. Tactically, Ego's Planet is a case study in weaponized hospitality. It proves that the most dangerous environments aren't the ones that look hostile. They're the ones that look perfect. 8. Contraxia's Neon Frontier. Not every desirable planet needs golden spires or ancient forests. Sometimes you just want somewhere with a good bar, cheap rent, and nobody asking where you came from. Contraxia is an ice world, and that sounds immediately disqualifying until you understand what the inhabitants have done with it. The surface is a frozen wasteland of sub-zero temperatures and perpetual twilight. But the settlements carved into and beneath that ice are some of the most vibrant anarchic pleasure districts in the known galaxy. Picture this. You descend through an atmospheric entry corridor and break through the cloud layer into a world of electric blue ice fields stretching to the horizon under a sky full of unfamiliar constellations. Then the settlement lights appear. Clusters of neon pink, electric green, and deep amber glowing through the ice like jewels embedded in frosted glass. The architecture is half-carved, half-built, with structures that use the natural ice formations as load-bearing walls, creating interiors that shimmer and refract light in every direction. The Ravagers use Contraxia as a regular shore leave destination, which tells you everything about the local economy. This is a world built around recreation, entertainment, and the kind of services that frontier populations demand after months in deep space. The establishments range from sophisticated to deeply questionable, but the common thread is that nobody judges you, and nothing closes. For the right personality type, Contraxia offers something no pristine utopia can: authenticity. 9. Sakaar's chaotic arena. Sakaar shouldn't be on this list. By every measurable metric of civilizational stability, governance, infrastructure, human rights, it's a disaster. And yet, there's a reason millions of beings from across the universe end up here and never leave. Sakaar exists at the nexus of multiple cosmic wormholes, which means it collects everything the universe throws away. Ships, debris, people, all of it tumbles through portals and crashes onto Sakaar's vast scrap plains. The landscape is a layered geological record of cosmic refuse, compressed over millennia into terrain that's equal parts junkyard and archaeological goldmine. But the city is something else entirely. The Grandmaster's capital rises from the wasteland like a fever dream, rendered in concrete and holographic light. Towering structures wrapped in animated projections of the Grandmaster's face, streets buzzing with alien species of every description, all operating under a single unifying principle: entertainment above all else. The Contest of Champions isn't just a gladiatorial event, it's the economic engine of the entire civilization, drawing spectators, gamblers, and traders from across the wormhole network. Daily life on Sakaar is governed by a simple hierarchy. If you're useful, you're comfortable. If you're entertaining, you're wealthy. If you're neither, you're scavenging the scrap plains. The Grandmaster's regime is absurd, narcissistic, and deeply unstable, but it provides something that more civilized worlds often don't: upward mobility without prerequisite. No birth caste, No species restriction, no formal education required. If you can fight, trade, or make someone laugh, you can rise. Time also works differently on Sakaar due to the wormhole interference. Minutes elsewhere can equal weeks here. For anyone running from something, that temporal distortion is the ultimate witness protection. Sakaar thrives on chaos and spectacle, but our final world proves that sometimes the most powerful move a civilization can make is choosing to be quiet. 10. New Asgard's quiet rebirth. After Ragnarok burned the Golden City to cosmic ash and Thanos gutted the refugee ship in open space, the surviving Asgardians did something no intelligence analyst would have predicted. They didn't rebuild an empire. They settled in a fishing village on the coast of Norway. New Asgard, the settlement in Tunsberg, is on paper the least impressive location on this list. It's a small coastal town. There are boats. There's a harbor. The buildings are modest. The weather is cold and gray more often than not, and it might be the wisest strategic decision any displaced civilization has ever made. Consider the daily reality. You wake up in a cottage overlooking the North Sea, where the morning light breaks across slate-gray water and catches the mist rolling off the fjords. The air is sharp and clean, carrying the smell of salt and pine. Your neighbors are Asgardians, beings with 5,000-year lifespans and the physical resilience to survive cosmic warfare, who have collectively decided that peace is worth more than power. The town runs on fishing, tourism, and a quiet integration with Earth's broader economy. Valkyrie's leadership has prioritized sustainability over expansion, diplomacy over conquest, a complete inversion of the Odin-era doctrine. The Asgardian population is small, tight-knit, and fiercely protective of the community they've built from nothing. The strategic brilliance is subtle. By embedding themselves on Earth, the Asgardians gained access to the planet's defensive alliances, the Avengers, Sword, and whatever classified apparatus is operating in the background. They traded Imperial isolation for cooperative security, and in doing so, they may have ensured their survival more effectively than 10,000 years of Golden Age military supremacy ever did. For a civilian, New Asgard offers the rarest thing in the MCU, a second chance, a quiet life in a beautiful place, surrounded by people who have seen the worst the universe can deliver and chosen to respond with patience, community, and extraordinary Scandinavian seafood. 10 worlds, 10 civilizations, 10 different answers to the same question. What does a good life actually look like? The pattern buried in this data is clear. The worlds that offered the best quality of life weren't the most powerful. They were the most adaptable. Asgard's golden age collapsed under the weight of its own buried history. Titan's abundance bred complacency. Ego's perfection was a predatory illusion, but Xandar's multicultural diplomacy held. Talos' isolation preserved it. New Asgard's humility rebuilt it. The classified takeaway is this: in the MCU, paradise is never permanent. Every world on this list either fell, was threatened, or carried a hidden cost that its residents didn't fully understand until it was too late. The ones that survived didn't do so through firepower or wealth. They survived through the willingness to change when the old model failed. If you're choosing where to live in the MCU, don't pick the most beautiful world. Pick the one most likely to still be standing when the next extinction-level threat arrives. If this intel hit different, drop a hype on this video and subscribe for the next classified breakdown. The deeper we go, the more the MCU reveals. See you in the next briefing.